Hey everybody, the Arthur of Gaming here. Here to show you off something new to you today. This is a book that's coming out soon. We're looking at Exploring Eberron. So this book is written by Keith Baker, the original creator of Eberron for Wizards of the Coast. And this is going to be a title which is going to come out, if I can point at it here right there, on the DM's Guild. So this is going to be a digital product that I believe you can also get printed out. And it's going to come out on DM's Guild. This is a really cool book. I haven't had a chance to read through the whole thing, but I've been skimming it. I've been checking out various sections, which I'm going to show you here in a moment. And there is some really great stuff in here. I mean, above and beyond, I'm sure we all know, what kind of quality to expect here from Keith Baker. It's going to be amazing. But the artwork looks top notch. The layout looks great. I mean, it looks like a really, really nice book. So, here we go here. So if we take a look at, they have a little banana taped to a piece of paper. You got your normal credits, your table of contents. And now if we look in here, if I make this a little bigger here. So if you look in the table of contents, that might be a little bit too big. Let's go back. There you go. We have various things in here, like we have Discovering Eberron, some various things going on in here, some recent history and that sort of thing. We have some races of Eberron, and they talk about a little bit about them. The faiths of Eberron. They talk about some more domains of Eberron, the planes of existence. We got some character options, which are always my favorite part of any book. I love the crunch. I like background stuff and I like information as well, but crunch is always something that really attracts me because the bonus with crunch is you could use it in other places, right? Like not only Eberron, but if your DM allows it, you could take the same crunch from this Eberron book and put it into a homebrew campaign or Forgotten Realms or any of those kinds of things. So crunch is what really gets me out of bed in the morning because I wanna see that stuff and see what it is. So we're gonna go over a lot of the crunch in this. So you see racial options. So we got some new magic items and we got some friends and foes. All good stuff that you really want to see in a Dungeons and Dragons book. So I'm going to skip around here. We're going to go right to crunch because, as I said, I love crunch, right? So we're going to click. It's a hot link, which is amazing. So in the table of context, all this is hot linked. As you can see, my if you can't see, let me make it bigger here. You see my thing becomes a hand. So it gets the option for hot linking, and boom, it jumps right to that section, which is great. I love that too. That just I mean, I don't know why all digital products don't do that. It's just you have the option. It's something you can do. You should be doing it. So here are character options. We have we have some backgrounds, and this one particularly, it really makes me want to play a changeling. Like I was reading through this, the changeling traveler is really interesting. So not only do you have the typical skill proficiencies, tool proficiencies, that sort of thing. For equipment, you have a shift weave garment, which tells you what shift weave is here, and you kind of start with this common magic item that allows you to have 5 patterns in a object, and you get to take that object and make it look like different clothing. So that's really helpful for a shifter, obviously. And then you also get a persona. So you get this persona, and you can pick or you can roll whichever one, and that turns you into like a unique identity for your character. Obviously like a second identity. And this one is something I thought was really cool. So the skin can't language. So you learn like this secret language, and you have like scars and tattoos and stuff on your skin. And as you talk to people, you can shift things around slightly. It's like a thieves can't, but it's more subtle and used for changelings. So kind of like how they say tigers, all their striping is different, and you can really tell. You can tell by looking at a tiger, like which tiger's which by what their stripes are. Similar thing here, except you can change this to signify some small messages. Some 6 words or less messages, but you can shift it. So you can say 6 words and shift it again, etc. And you can also do it within 60 feet of you. So if people can see it within 60 feet of you, sorry, I'm covering it up here. It's in this section here. So that I thought was just a really great part of it. I thought that was very interesting, like a little, you know, uh, skin can. I thought it was really good. I thought that was really interesting. And then some of the typical stuff. You have a feature. Um, good way to secure information. Of course, you have all your traits, bonds, flaws, all that kind of stuff. Um, you have some goblinoids. A background for them. You have like a Malenti background, and then you can get into some of the races. So they go into some of the races like the Isomar here, but they go over different kinds of races. So they say that these are in additions to ones you might see in the other books, like in the Eberron book and such. And so these are new Isomar races. Um, which is kind of interesting. This one here, the core Isomar, I really think is interesting because uh, you can, starting at third level, you can use an action to draw on your connection to your ancestors. Misty tendrils flow around you, whispering advice only you can hear. Your transformation lasts for 1 minute or till you end it as a bonus action. During it, you gain advantage on all wisdom checks and saving throws. And once you use it, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. So you get like this, you can be that kind of character that maybe touches back to their ancestors. I could imagine like a really cool uh, like a barbarian core Isomar who is very much in tune with his ancestors, kind of like something like an American Indian kind of vibe to it, where you're talking to your ancestors and reaching back. And I could imagine that would be really cool, or Druid, or something along those lines. To me, it kind of fits really well with them, or maybe even like a necromantic character, because maybe your ancestors are all dead and you're reaching back and talking to the dead ancestors. That could be kind of cool too. So I love that little ability. I just thought that was very interesting. Um, the Seeker Isomar is good, and then there's like a Fernian Isomar, which is like a fire Isomar, um, and the Baron Isomar, which they just have some small changes. The Arini elves are very interesting. I don't know if you don't know about the Arini elves, they're kind of like uh, it's hard to say. They're kind of like living dead, so they're not undead, but they're like there's like this group of elves that are like this living dead kind of thing. So there's a lot about them that have to do with that, and they get a free cantrip, which is kind of interesting. A free cantrip from the Cleric or Wizard spell list, which I thought was very interesting to have for a race to get right. You get another cantrip. I love cantrips myself, so having a class or a race that gives me another cantrip is just fun. I find them to be interesting. The ruin bound dwarves. Very interesting. These again, all sorts of weird things. Eyes are weird. Their skin's weird. They have tattoos everywhere. Um, these guys have a symbiont which is attached to them, and they again get a cantrip of their choice from the following list: either Acid Splash, Guidance for themselves, Infestation from Xanathar's Guide, Light, Mage Hand, Poison Ray, Poison Spray, and Ray of Frost. And as long as you have your symbiont exposed, you get to have that thing. So if your symbiont, like you see down here, if your symbiont is like this, have these tendrils coming out of your arm, as long as you don't have sleeves on and they're covering up the symbiont, you get to use this ability, which I could imagine that'd be really cool for like a mage hand or something, right? If you had these tendrils coming out and you're trying to use mage hand and the tendrils are flexing and moving around, basically casting the spell, could be very interesting to do with that. So very interesting, very 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 cool little ability here. You got the hobgoblin traits. You have some goblins, some bugbears, some gnolls. So all sorts of interesting races in here that you can add into your game. We've seen some of these in like Volo's Guide to Monsters, for instance, but they have a little bit of a twist on some of them here. And now if you look at and this is really cool. I thought was really interesting was the racial feats. So they add in some feats based on race, and I thought there was some good stuff in here. So this one, for instance, the Urini half life, you get intelligence and wisdom raised up, resistance to necrotic and radiant damage. You have advantage on death saves. How awesome is that? And if you cast a spell that deals necrotic damage, you can choose to have it inflict radiant damage instead. So you could play a really cool, maybe like a death cleric kind of thing, where you're solely focused on like necrotic attacks, but then have it deal radiant damage instead, which is kind of interesting. And I mean, we know on death saving throws, if you get a 20 or higher, you stand back up. And what a lot of people don't realize is that 20 or higher, you have modification. If you have a modification, it counts. So if you have like a luck stone, which gives you a +1 on your saving throws, and you roll a 19, that becomes a 20. You stand back up with one hit point. If there's a paladin within 10 feet and they're giving you their charisma bonus, if you can get that to 20 or higher, your death save, you stand back up. So now imagine playing in like an Arini elf, and which I don't know if I'm saying that name right. By the way, Arini, I'm not sure. Aereni, I'm not sure. So don't yell at me too much about it. But imagine having advantage on your death saves and a bonus. Like how likely are you to stand back up in combat with 1 hit point, which could either A, bail your butts out of the fire, or B, save your cleric a lot of work, or your paladin, or whoever's doing the healing. The changeling metamorphosis, I thought this was very interesting. You can make some adaptations to your body, like gills, dark vision, and some natural weapons. So, I mean, how handy could that be to, oh, I'm a changeling, shape some gills, dive in the water. Underwater stuff tends to be really difficult for players in the lower levels, until you get to 3rd level spells and someone can cast water breathing or something. Or if you happen to be a race that allows you to breathe in the water, obviously. But so having somebody who can adapt to some various things like breathing underwater is very handy, very very handy to have. So there's just a lot of good stuff in here. I liked the envoy specialist for the Warforged. You modify your body and you modify. You like integrate a piece of like a tool into your body, which is kind of interesting. More shifting stuff, which I really liked, and juggernaut plating. You get to get better armor for your juggernauts. So class options. I really love the Artificer. I played the Artificer back in Eberron back in third edition, and it was a lot of fun. It was particularly fun back in 3rd edition because the game that I played for a long time, I think we were 17th level or something. We were playing a Gestalt game, so we got to have, every time we leveled, we took a level in 2 classes, and you got the bonuses of whatever the best bonus was from each class. So our characters were slightly more powerful than a normal character was. So I had paired an Artificer up with a Paladin, which just was a great combination. Because in 3rd edition, Artificers weren't very good combat people. They were, really more of a wizardy kind of class. And so pairing it up with a fighting class made it very just excellent. Now they've kind of put that into the Artificer anyway. So there are Artificer subclasses which have the ability to fight and can stand in melee combat and do some damage and do some fighting. So it's very interesting to see how they've kind of mixed that together for 5th edition. And these 2 subclasses I think are very cool. So you have the Forge Adept, which has some various things like another tool proficiency. They get some new spells added to their spell list. They're not added to their spell list. They're already prepared for them. So you always have them prepared for you. And there's some good ones in there. You got like Fire Shield when you get higher, Wall of Force, Shield of Faith, Spiritual Weapon. I love Spiritual Weapon myself. I just think it's completely amazing. The fact that it casts as a bonus action, it can attack every turn. You can be attacking yourself and have the spiritual weapon attacking from like behind them or something. I mean, just really good stuff. It's one of my favorite spells. But then battle ready at third level, when you gain this subclass, now you have proficiency with martial weapons. And when you attack, you get to use your intelligence modifier instead of your strength or dexterity for attack and damage. Now the bonus here is 2. It doesn't say melee combat. So you could take a bow or throw daggers, and you could have them use your intelligence mod for your attack and damage. So now this takes that Artificer who maybe wasn't much of a combat person and turns him into a combat person, because now you're taking your intelligence, which is your prime stat, and you're using it for your attack and damage instead of, having to have a second stat, which is good. Like any Artificer could be smart, and then if you have another good stat like a 16 or something like that, you could throw it in your strength or your dex, and you could, use weapons and be better at it. But now you don't have to, right? You can have that secondary stat be whatever you want. It doesn't have to focus on a combat stat. and you can use your intelligence modifier instead, which I think is great. And the Gall Sharat here, this is very interesting. So you get to imbue a weapon at 3rd level to make it magical. It becomes a +1 weapon. It does not count towards your maximum number of infused items. So it's kind of like having a free magic weapon infusion for your Artificer. And it's a magic, touch a magic or non-magic, simple or martial melee weapon. So it has to be a melee weapon. This one does. So it can't be a bow. It's got to be a sword or something along those lines. It's +1 attack and damage. At higher levels, it goes up. So at 8th level, it becomes a +2. At 13th, it becomes a +3, which is good. And this, I think, is really interesting. If the weapon you imbued has a thrown property, it returns to your hand immediately after you make a range attack. So I just imagine playing like a smith with a hammer. So you got this war hammer, and you're whacking people in melee combat, and then you just let the sucker fly. It goes over, hits something else, and the hammer flies back to your hand. You got some Thor action going on there. But I mean, who doesn't like Thor? Who doesn't like throwing hammers that come back to you? It's been a trope in D&D for years upon years, all the way back to the dwarven thrower, where if a dwarf threw the hammer, it came back to him. So I really like that. And then some typical stuff, extra attacks, runes of war. You can activate an aura that lets you let you and anybody that you want within 30 feet can deal some extra radiant damage. They die for radiant damage, and then perfect weapon. Your weapon gets better and better. Then there's the Artificer Maverick, which I find to be a good one. This one has lots of spells and lots of options for spells. So it has arcane breakthroughs. If you see right back here, there we go, arcane breakthroughs. And they get to pick other classes' spells to put on their spell list. So then every time they memorize spells, they get their Artificer spells, and they get like 1 or 2 or 3 extra spells, depending on what level they are. From this other spell list that they get to add, which could add some very interesting combinations. I can imagine some stuff like, again, you're looking at like a melee combat Artificer if you wanted to. Maverick's not the same as the Forge Adept, but you could be looking at like a melee combat Artificer, and you could start throwing Paladin spells on there, or maybe Ranger spells, or Warlock spells where you're hexing things or marking, all these kind of options could add for some very interesting spells. Or you straight up Master Blaster, go with some wizard stuff, and now let's see, at you additional level spells at an additional 3rd level spell at 9th level. So at 9th level Artificer, you could throw fireballs or lightning bolts. I mean, that's really cool. Cantrip Specialist. We all know how I said I love cantrips. So you get an extra cantrip, and not only do you get an extra Artificer cantrip, but now you can replace a cantrip with ones from the Artificer spell list or from your breakthrough spell list when you finish a short rest. So now you're tinkering with your cantrips. If you're finding that we're all under this adventure happens to go underground, so now I need a light spell. So now you switch a cantrip out and have your light spell, which is kind of cool because some people take light and then everybody in the party has dark vision, and they're like, well, that was a wasted use of taking a cantrip. So you could not ever take light and then have it, oh hey, now I need it, let's take a short rest and I'll get that back. Or off the breakthrough spell list. So now you're looking at, you could start taking things like Eldritch Blast, which is everybody's favorite cantrip, or something along those lines. 5th level Cantrip Savant, you're getting bonuses with your cantrips, either bonus to hit or bonus to your spell save, and it goes up based on your level, which is also great. You can replace cantrips with a different cantrip, except this time you can do it as an action and once per long rest. So instead of taking a short rest, once per long rest on the fly, you can be like, okay, this is happening in combat. This creature's vulnerable to fire. I'll use my action this turn. I'll flip to Firebolt, and now next turn I will start throwing firebolts. For instance. superior breakthroughs. You know, your spells start casting; they're more powerful. I'm not want to read through all of these word for words. I want you all to go buy the book, right? So I don't want to give this all to you for free, but I want you to kind of have a gist of it and go buy this book because I think it's going to be worth it. Some new Artificer infusions like Bane weapons and healing staffs. Quiver of Energy I really like. Use this when you infuse this item, choose one damage type. The first time each turn the bearer hits target with a weapon attack using ammunition from drawing this quiver, the attack deals an extra die 6 damage. So you know you have a quiver, you boom, you put it on it, and then every first item that you hit, you could deal an extra die 6 of damage. So maybe you could have 2 quivers, for instance. If you have 2 attacks, one with the special quiver, one with the not special quiver, draw an arrow from one, draw an arrow from the other, bang, bang, and now you got 20 rounds of ammunition there. And then that you're an Artificer, hint for anybody playing an Artificer, take a bow. After a battle, you gather up all your arrows and cast Mending. One of the best cantrips ever, and boom, all your arrows are back. Stuff them back in your quivers. Boom, go to town. So there's some really good stuff in there for that kind of stuff. There's the Bard College of the Dire Singer, the Dirge Singer, and they can use guidance cantrip, but additionally, as a bonus action, they can expend 1 use of Bardic Inspiration to inspire multiple allies. When you do choose 2 creatures within 60 feet, each one gets a Bardic Inspiration die, but it slows down the progression of your Bardic Inspiration. So instead of it changing fast, it slows down when the die type changes, but you can affect 2 people at a time. So that's kind of interesting. Bonuses to some skills. You can commanding voice, which kind of gives you like that a battle master kind of thing where you can make people attack for you and things like that. For the Cleric, there's the Mind Domain, which is pretty interesting as well. The one thing I liked about this too was Flash of Insight. At first level, you can summon power from Will of Mental Energy. When you make an ability check, you can choose to reroll after you see the result, but before you know if it succeeds or fails. If you get a bonus to the reroll equal to half your Cleric level, minimum of 1. So you're making a skill check, you roll, you're like either terrible, okay, let's re-roll that. That's an obvious one. But you roll and end up with like a 13 and you're like, ooh, is a 13 enough? There's always that nebulous like 11 to 15. There's like this nebulous area of some checks you're going to make on 11 to 15 and some you're not. So you hit like a 13, you're like, ooh, do I re-roll? And if you do, you get a bonus. You can use it twice, and then it refreshes on short or long rest. So it gives you a little bit of a help there. You have a spell, the Psychic Force. When you cast spells that inflict radiant damage, you can have it deal psychic damage instead. So those kind of things. So again, some other interesting things like that. There's a Druid, the Circle of the Forged. Now this I find to be really cool. Back in 4th edition D&D, I had actually played a Warforged Druid. I was, loved the idea of being a transformer, right? I thought it was really cool. I was like the what are they, the Dinobots? Dinobots. So I was like a Dinobot, and I could turn into these creatures, and I kind of picture them all like the lions from Voltron or something, and I thought that was really cool. So this is a similar form of a druid. So the druids you can turn into things like the steel dogs, right? And when you turn the Skin of Steel at second level, you get a bonus to your art to like the armor class of the creature. When you wild shape, you get bonuses to basically you turn into a Warforged. Whether you are a Warforged or not, you turn into a Warforged kind of creature. With the bonus to armor class, you can't be poisoned, resistant to poison damage, don't need to eat, drink, or breathe, immune to disease, don't need to sleep, can't be put to sleep. So that is very interesting. I feel like even if you're not a Warforged, just the fact that you can get a +2 to AC is fantastic, because we know that there's so many creatures that the Druid turns into that their AC is just crap. So it's really cool that you end up with like your bear instead of a 12 AC or whatever, it turns into a 14, right? So that's just less chance that you're going to get hit, making the melee druid even more of a badass. Um, you can imbue your attacks with some elemental damage. So when you wild shape, you can have fire or acid or cold, and they have little abilities on them based on that. And lightning, an adamantine hide. So at 10th level, when you transform by wild shape, you gain resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical attacks. Um, which is pretty cool. And then at 14th level, you can't be charmed, frightened, paralyzed, petrified, or poisoned, and you're immune to poison damage. So it's just turning you into these, golem-like animals, construct animals, which just I think adds like a cool flavor to it. Especially when we all so often think of the druid as being the naturey, hug the tree kind of people, animals, yay, cool. And this kind of gives them a little bit of a twist of, yeah, but turn into like these metallic animals, which is just kind of cool. And there's the monk, the way of the living weapon. So their unarmed die goes up faster, which is kind of interesting. They have a couple of abilities at 3rd level. They get to do like Traveler's Blade. You can spend 4 key points. Your reach extends by 5 feet, and additionally, at the start of your turn, you can spend up to 4 key points to extend your reach further. For every key point you spend, your reach extends by 5 more feet till the end of your turn. So it's kind of interesting that they can automatically get extra 5-foot reach, and then add on to some things there. Uh, you can choose what kind of damage you want to do with your strike. You can do slashing, piercing, bludgeoning. Kind of awesome. Various things like that with like the monk. So those are all of our class options and our race options, because we went through a bunch of that there. And then the last couple things I want to look at here are like some treasures. So there's some common magic items which are becoming a real thing. Making these common items which have just a slight bit of magical flavor to them, which are kind of interesting. I liked the where to go here? I like the integrated tool, right? So integrated tool attaches the body of a war forged and becomes just part of their body, or the lamplighter, which lets you can instantly light or snuff out a candle, torch, small campfire, similar source flame within 10 feet. So kind of like a prestidigitation thing, but it's got a 10-foot range. And then you get into some actual magic items, some bigger things, and there's some really cool, interesting things in there. Some Dragon Mark stuff, some Dragon Mark focus items, which are kind of interesting. So there's just, again, just tons of stuff in this book. There's tons. There is 248 pages of goodness in here. They go into some of the symbionts more, and you can get things like a hungry weapon, which is a Dalekir symbiont, which is a part of your body. So you can start getting into some things like, venom or carnage, kind of an idea, various things like that. Making some pretty interesting, cool characters, and then you get into some monsters in the back, which are or maybe monsters. They could be friends. It does say friends and foes, so it could be both. But you have some interesting creatures and stuff back in here, which are pretty cool. Forest Queen, some large phase, and some layer actions, and lots of cool stuff like that back here. And then if you're not looking for crunch, so if you're not like me, who just wants to pull the crunch out of every single book and use it wherever the heck I want to use it, you can go back to some of the earlier chapters, and you can actually look at, actual information, you know, especially if you were going to run an Eberron game, you may want to read up on ages past, the dawn of creation, the age of demons, and what has happened in the past, age of giants, and blah blah blah. So this can give you some great ideas as well for characters. Maybe you're playing an Isomar who's thousands of years old, and maybe you want to come from, the age of the giants, and you want to have a whole backstory about how you come from the age of the giants and what happened to you there. Well, you wouldn't know that if you didn't go and look through this part of the book. So there's all these parts of this. There's some recent history stuff in there on stuff that has happened, and what's happened, to like the cities and the countries within it. So lots of good stuff in there too. Like I said, you get into the races of Eberron. They talk some more about the races specifically themselves, more backstory kind of stuff, and things about just the races specifically. You get into the faiths of Eberron. One thing I've always really liked about the faiths of Eberron, I always loved the silver flame. I love the idea, and that's down here. Where is it? Silver flame here. So if we get into silver flame, I always loved the idea that the silver flame was not really a god. It was just this energy, and you were worshiping an energy. And I always kind of like that. I've put some elements of that kind of stuff into my Riverbreak world, where you're not really worshiping a god, so to speak. You're worshiping like an idea. And I just like that. I like that that was a twist. That was something different, right? You weren't just, there wasn't some silver flame. There wasn't some god who wielded silver flame. Everything was like flames were licking up their body, or in their hands they had this silvery poofy flame that came out. There was none of that kind of stuff. It was just, there was this energy, and you were worshiping an energy, which I just thought that was interesting and different. And it's probably happened in other campaign worlds, and I just didn't really pay attention, and I didn't realize it. But I think Eberron was the first time I saw that, way back in third edition, and I really liked that. I just thought that was a cool, interesting thing to go with. So Silver Flame, one of my favorites when I play Eberron. But there's lots of options here in the faiths section. If you look in the faith section over here on the left, up there. And then some of the uncharted domains. So they talk more about some of the countries, like Drome, and all that, like things that have happened to like the different nations, the Mrorholds, and that sort of thing. The Thunder Sea. So they talk about the world beneath the waves. So things that are happening underneath the water too. So they've expanded a little bit of things there. And then they get into the planes of existence too. So what is about the planes and the material plane, and the things that are happening, the astral and the ethereal planes. So all these, they get into all this stuff in this book too, and some demiplanes and prison demiplanes and shadow demiplanes and all that kind of stuff. So there's lots of interesting areas in here. You see like some of the little clockwork people, like maybe they got some of the modrons or something in like in this part of it. Which is kind of interesting too. So that's a good look at the book without getting too specific, because I want you to go buy it. I want you to go and get it. I think Keith Baker and his team have done an amazing job on this book. Which side? This side here. On this book here. Here he is down here, Keith Baker, right? I think they've done an amazing job on this book. I was glad they sent it to me and let me check it out so I could show it to you guys. Remember, it's going to be on DM's Guild, so take a look for it there. I don't know when it's releasing yet. This is a digital copy. They didn't have a release date yet for me to tell you guys, so just keep an eye out for it. Maybe they'll have a landing page on DM's Guild or something where you could check it out. I'm probably going to get this thing printed out if I can get like send it somewhere and have them print it, because it just looks great, and I love a physical book in my hand. So I'm going to see if there's a way to get this thing printed. But it's great. So check it out. Exploring Eberron by Keith Baker. It's certainly going to be a great enhancement to any Eberron game that you have, or like I like to do, pull the crunch out and use it in any game. So you don't need to be playing Eberron to take some of the cool stuff out of this book and put it into your game. So please subscribe to my channel. Tell me in comments like what kind of stuff you guys want to see. Do you like videos about this? Do you like videos about D&D books and stuff that you might want to buy, and you want to see what it looks like? See what it looks like ahead of time. Get some ideas. Let me know down in the comments. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube at the Arthur of Gaming. That's me. Always looking for more follows. I try to do some giveaways coming up. Soon I'll have another giveaway coming up, so I like to give giveaway stuff to people who are following me. So follow me, tell your friends, share this out, and as always, everybody, it's a crazy, crazy world out there. Please stay safe.